Sometimes the truth is scarier than fiction. Killers hiding under the bed, bugs hiding inside your body, organ thieves, drug zombies, and psychopathic clowns. But every urban legend started somewhere, and today we're revealing the grisly details on this episode of the Infographic Show. Scariest urban legends that turned out to be true. Number 15. The calls are coming from inside the house. Kicking off the list with a certified classic of pure nightmares. A young woman is alone in a big, dark house, or maybe she's babysitting some local kids to earn a little extra money. Then she starts getting ominous phone calls. A menacing voice over the phone seems very interested in getting to know her. She starts to feel threatened, so she calls the police, and they tell her to stay on the line, and the next time they can trace the calls. But the call is coming from inside of the house. It's the line that launched 1,000 childhood nightmares and horror movie scenes. But it's not real, right? Not if you were a teenage girl in Chester, England, who found herself living a real-life horror story. Her stalker, Kyle Ravenscroft, had been harassing her for months. One night, his poor victim received a number of texts. Okay, so that's a little different from the urban legend, but not even stalkers call anymore. Ravenscroft said that he was watching her. He was on the grounds of her home and he was close by, but nobody knew exactly how close he was. It turned out that Ravenscroft was hiding under the poor girl's bed all night, texting from there. The very same bed that she was sitting on. The things that nightmares are made of. And because it was Ravenscroft's first offense, he was only given 12 weeks in prison and a £100 fine. Now that doesn't exactly seem like that much of a deterrent. Speaking of scary stuff that really shouldn't be under your bed. Number 14. The body under the bed. Everyone stayed at a budget motel that just felt off. The kind of place that makes you think, well, someone definitely died here. It's a popular urban legend that starts with a weird smell in the room and an unusually lumpy mattress, and then it turns out it's a dead body hastily shoved into the mattress springs. Now, it makes a lot of sense that this urban legend has endured. Corpses are creepy, and anytime you stay in a room that isn't your own, it is natural to wonder what happened there before you arrived, and whether it was even properly cleaned. But this urban legend comes out of more than just a neat freak paranoia. It really happened, and not just once, a truly upsetting number of times. In July 1996, a 10-day-old corpse was found inside the mattress of a Pasadena, California travel lodge after customers complained about a funny smell. And it happened again in 1999 when the body of a 64-year-old Saul Hernandez was found in the mattress of an Atlantic City motel after a German couple spent the night sleeping on him. And then, in 2003, a Capri motel in downtown Kansas City found a body in an advanced stage of decomposition under one of its beds after a guest complained that the smell was too foul for them to stay in there. Well, it happens a lot, and you get the idea. But at least a corpse can't actively hurt you, unlike Number 13. The monster in the mirror. There's more than one urban legend about terrifying cursed entities that live inside of a mirror. Maybe you know it as Bloody Mary, the ghost of a blood-stained woman who will appear in the reflection if you say her name 3 times. She'll either claw up your face, she'll kill you, or she'll just drag you off into the mirror dimension. Or maybe it was the Candyman, an ominous figure with a hook for a hand that'll crawl through and seriously mess up your day if you say his name 5 times. But one person who unfortunately didn't get the chance was 52-year-old Ruthie McCoy, who lived in a low-income housing development in Chicago. Ruthie was what you might call an eccentric, a diagnosed schizophrenic who was often unmedicated and suffered from delusions and hallucinations as a result. And that's why in 1987, her neighbors didn't really pay much thought to it when Ruthie started screaming about men climbing in through her bathroom mirror. It seemed like another textbook product of her mental illness, until they found old poor Ruthie dead, having been shot 4 times. What had really happened here was that in these cheap government development projects, the medicine cabinets in the apartments could act as a doorway between the thin walls of the apartments. You just remove the medicine cabinets from a vacant apartment and you can climb right in. And that's exactly what the robbers who broke into Ruthie's apartment did. They slipped in through the wall, and when the robbery went wrong, they murdered her. But people who mean you harm won't always crawl out of the walls. Sometimes they'll approach you like they're there to help. Number 12. The fake cop. Urban legends are full of creepy imposters, serial killers pretending to be old women, or rats disguised as fancy purse dogs. But one of the most chilling is the fake cop, a sinister individual hiding behind a badge to lure in unsuspecting people to the back of their car, where they vanish forever. And not only is it not just a legend, it's also one of the murder methods of one of the United States' most infamous and sadistic serial killers, Ted Bundy. In 1974, Carol DeRoche was killing time at a Utah mall, and a strange man approached her claiming to be a police officer. He informed her that her car had been stolen in the parking lot. DeRoche felt that something was wrong, but this cop was a smooth talker, and he lured her out to his car in the parking lot. It's only due to Carol's quick thinking that the story doesn't end in tragedy. After a brief drive, Bundy dropped his cop facade and he tried to bind Carol's hands. Thankfully, she managed to fight him off and escape the car, where she was rescued and the killer fled. Carol's testimony would later be vital in getting Bundy executed. Stories like this are good reminders to not judge on appearances, but our next spooky urban legend is an even better one. Number 11. The Green Man. In the dark roads outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there's a legend that you might just see a grisly sight if you're not careful. Some call him the Green Man for the sickly glow of his skin. Others know him as Charlie No-Face, a man with no eyes, no nose, and a mouth twisted beyond recognition. And if you see him, you never forget him. Of course, you haven't seen him unless you lived near Pittsburgh before 1985. That's because the Green Man wasn't a ghost, he was real. His name wasn't Charlie No-Face either, it was Raymond Robinson, and he was actually an incredibly chill guy. At 8 years old, Ray had an electrical incident that left him severely disfigured, as well as blind, but he wasn't a monster, he was just a normal guy who lived with his family who helped him cope with his disabilities. He did DIY projects to support himself and he kept a reclusive lifestyle because he didn't want his face to scare anybody. He did, however, enjoy going on long walks at night, where he used a walking stick to feel his way around. People who ran into him were often shocked at the sight of his unique features, and a couple of times he was hit by a car. But anyone who actually approached him found him to be a very easygoing guy, and he was happy to pose for pictures if you gave him a beer or some cigarettes. Ah, how wholesome. Now let's talk about another dead body. Number 10. The Funhouse Corpse. These days, immersive haunts where you walk through a complex set and get jumped by costume actors are all the rage for fun Halloween frights. But even amongst all these, there is a simple joy to the classic ghost train or the carnival funhouse. But what if you saw a decoration in one of those that looked just a little too real? Surely, you couldn't make a corpse look that realistic with just paper mache, right? Well, it might just be the corpse of a long-dead robber named Elmer McCurdy. McCurdy was an inept criminal, but after he was gunned down by lawmen in 1911, he became something of a posthumous sensation. The undertaker who embalmed him was stiffed on the payment for the job, so he decided to get his money back by taking McCurdy's corpse on tour. The embalmed robber was on the carnival circuit for quite some time, but then he mysteriously disappeared. He eventually resurfaced inside a funhouse in a California amusement park in 1976 by the team filming an episode of The $6 Million Man. So, who knows how many dead bodies are still lurking around in carnival rides out there? But they're not the only things lurking. Number 9. Creepy clown epidemics. Creepy clowns. Thanks to real-life monsters like John Wayne Gacy and horror legends like Stephen King, they just won't die. They've become urban legend mainstays, showing up everywhere from eerie babysitter tales about unsettling clown statues to Chicago's own Homie the Clown. He would cruise the streets in a free candy creeper van looking for people to kidnap. But all this aside, we don't actually need to be afraid of clowns. The creepy ones are just in the movies, right? In October 2016, chaos in grease paint swept across the United States and beyond as a bizarre wave of creepy clown sightings gripped the public. Thankfully, nobody got killed or kidnapped as far as we know, but the hysteria helped form a whole new set of creepy clown urban legends. But while there are plenty of people afraid of clowns out there, can that even really begin to hold a candle to? Number 8. The woman buried alive. It's most people's worst nightmare. Locked in a tight, dark box underneath the earth with air depleting and nobody coming to help you. All that's left to do is die. Urban legends of false burials have floated around for a long time, but they are a lot less common today thanks to more advanced medical technology that we have access to. But was there any truth to this, or is it just another worst-case scenario for people with vivid imaginations? Well, this absolutely happened, and there's a good chance that it happened more than we would be comfortable admitting. It was apparently such an epidemic at some point that special safe coffins were sold with viewing windows and strings attached to bells so that the person mistakenly buried could signal that they were still alive down there. And when that doesn't happen, well, you get incidents like the horrifying case of Octavia Hatcher in Pikeville, Kentucky, who was said to have been buried alive in 1891. After a failed pregnancy, Octavia fell into a deep sickness and then into a coma and seemingly died. But then other people in the city started collapsing, perhaps due to a nasty case of viral encephalitis transmitted by the local mosquitoes or gases from a nearby coal mine. But whatever the case, it had people thinking, well, maybe we jumped the gun on Octavia Hatcher's speedy summer burial. When they dug up poor Octavia, it was already too late. If she wasn't dead when they first buried her, she certainly was now. The frantic scratch marks against the lid of her coffin and the bloody mangled state of her nails painted a pretty grim picture of her dying hours. But America doesn't have a full monopoly on urban legends that turned out to be real. Let's give someone else a chance with number 7, Leyon. The Swiss forest of Moule is home to a bizarre, mysterious figure known alternatingly as Leyon and the Ghost of Moule. But this isn't a regular ghost. No, reports of Leyon were much, much freakier than that. Leyon is a huge hulking figure at around 6'3" according to most reports, whose outfit consists of an old-fashioned World War II-era gas mask, a boiler suit, and a large camouflage coat or cloak. Nobody knows who Leyon actually is, though theories have ranged from a ghost to apocalyptic survivalist to a very private person with a skin condition. For quite some time, it was assumed to just be a spooky story told for fun, until 2013, when a magazine called Le Matin actually published exclusive photos of Leyon stalking through the woods, causing the case to shoot up in popularity. Here's the problem, though. One thing people were right about was that Leyon really didn't like attention. Not long after the legend went viral, the gas mask and coat were found in the Moule forest, with a note saying that Leyon would no longer be appearing. And he's a mysterious gas mask-wearing entity of his word, because Leyon hasn't actually been seen since. Okay, so everything you've just heard, well, those are the nice ones. Now, we're sorry to say that the ones you're about to hear are the most gross, messed up, and horrifying of all. Starting with number 6, bugs in the body. It's probably one of the grossest urban legends out there. A girl gets a zit one day and a little red bump on her cheek. It's almost like a bug bite. It's a little uncomfortable, sure, but still, it's probably nothing to worry about, right? So she goes about her day normally as the bump on her cheek gets bigger and bigger. It's a painful, itchy red cyst, and she's starting to feel self-conscious about it. So she goes to the school bathroom to see if she can just pop it and get on the road to recovery. But when the zit pops, she discovers the horrible truth. A spider had laid eggs in her face, and now hundreds of baby spiders are crawling down the side of her face. Of course, there are plenty of insects that could find their way into human bodies in real life, from the tapeworm that makes a home in your gut to bot flies capable of laying eggs in your flesh and causing maggots to crawl out of the painful red welts when they hatch. But one incident from the last few years somehow tops all of that. In 2017, a 42-year-old woman from Chennai, India, was suffering from a severe headache and shortness of breath. She was immediately taken to a nearby medical center when her health started to get worse. Doctors took a look inside her head and found that something was moving in there. A closer look confirmed their worst fears. A live cockroach had crawled up the woman's nose and had been entering her brain over the course of the last 12 hours. They were able to remove it over an uncomfortable 45-minute procedure, and the woman's health returned. It was a near miss, all things considered, because if the roach had died in her head, there'd have been a risk of a lethal infection developing as its corpse rotted. Let's switch gears to something more chill, like amphetamine-cranked cannibals. Number 5, the PCP rage zombie. Every generation has its own big, scary drug, and in the 90s that drug was PCP, also known as angel dust. Folklorist Jan Harold Brunvand, basically the global authority on urban legends, even compiled a list of some of the craziest things that people believed had happened to PCP users. Some claimed they stripped naked and attacked the police, shrugging off multiple gunshots. Others claimed that people on the drug had massacred their entire families. Perhaps most disturbingly of all, some even claimed that the drug could turn you into a flesh-eating zombie. It's as terrifying as it is improbable. But of course it really happened. This was the tragic and terrifying case of the rapper Big Lurch, real name Antron Singleton, a member of the hip-hop group Cosmic Slop Shop. In 2002, after a spate of heavy PCP use, he had a complete psychotic break and attacked his roommate, 21-year-old Tanisha Isaias. He brutally stabbed Isaias to death and left bite marks on her face. Big Lurch was found standing in the moonlight, naked and covered in blood, as he stared up at the sky. He was arrested and he had the contents of his stomach tested, where human flesh that was not his own was discovered. He tried to use his PCP-induced psychosis to get himself some leniency in court, but that didn't actually win him any favors there. He was sentenced to life in prison, where he still remains to this day. Thankfully, PCP use has really fallen out of vogue these days, so your odds of being attacked and partially eaten by a deranged angel dust user is highly unlikely. But we all use toilets every day, which means our next entry should make you feel very, very nervous. Number 4. Toilet snakes. Now this one ranks right up there with the classic great white shark in the deep end of the local pool when it comes to irrational childhood fears. But the urban legend of sewer snakes slithering up through the pipes hits just a little closer to home, especially if you live in a country where venomous snakes are actually a threat. It turns out this may not be such an irrational fear, especially if you live in Thailand. There are a horrifying number of cases of snakes rising up out of the porcelain throne to take their pound of flesh from an unwitting human victim. Here are just 3 of the many cases of diabolical toilet snakes. In 2016, an unfortunate man was going to the bathroom in his home in Chachoengsao province east of Bangkok when a python leaped out of the water and latched on to his peen. Now, thankfully, researchers were there to the scene on time and both the man and the python survived, though they had to take the entire toilet apart to let the python free. Then in 2018, a man in Bangkok took a python to the privates and he needed to get 15 stitches. And in 2025, a 38-year-old man had a brush with death when another python thought his junk looked delectable. The moral of all this, well, if you live in Thailand, maybe just exercise a little caution when you're heading to the bathroom, unless you're trying to score yourself a real-life trouser snake. But at least all these people survived. Our next entry sadly wasn't so lucky. Number 3. The quiet killer in the library. Libraries have always carried a certain eerie vibe. Chances are you've seen a tense horror movie scene unfold among rows of dusty books where the main character is certain they're not alone. And if you've ever pulled an all-nighter in a college library fueled by energy drinks and last-minute panic, you probably felt it too, that creeping paranoia that someone or something is watching you through the stacks. As a result, we've seen a few urban legends of murderers lurking quietly in libraries, waiting for victims, and it does have a disturbing basis in reality. In this case, the unsolved murder of Betsy Aerdsma. Betsy was a bright and well-liked young student who was studying in her local library back in Michigan in 1969 when a silent killer approached her for unknown reasons. The killer murdered Betsy with a single stab to the chest without uttering a word. Betsy collapsed at the end of the aisle, pulling down several books from the shelves as she fell. The killer then pulled the knife out of Betsy's chest and left. Betsy collapsed and was dead from a severed pulmonary artery within 5 minutes. To this day, her murder remains unsolved. Nobody knows who stabbed Betsy in that library that day. All the police know was that the killer held the knife in their right hand, and the stab, which pierced Betsy's breastbone, must have been done with incredible force. But the only thing that we think is worse than the horrific murder of one woman is the horrific murder of an entire family. Number 2. The killer hiding in the house. Are you sure you're alone in your house right now? And we're not talking about your family or your pets, we mean strangers. Maybe even strangers with murderous intent. In the world of urban legends, killers are hiding everywhere. They are lurking in the back seat of your car with an axe, only subdued by the flashing headlights of the Good Samaritan driving behind you. Or maybe they're hiding under your car in the parking lot, ready to slash at your legs with a razor blade and drag you underneath. But the scariest of all, they're already in your home, living right under your nose, just waiting for you and your family to let your guard down. You've probably heard urban legends and creepypastas of creepers living in attics and crawl spaces, families moving into new houses and finding hidden mattresses, and empty candy bar wrappers behind hidden doors. And the scariest event of this kind in history has got to be the infamous Hinter Kyifek murders. This act of sadistic mass murder that happened in Germany back in 1922 feels like a literal horror story come to life. A family of 6 and their maid were living in the house quite happily until things started to get strange. The family maid quit, saying that she believed the property was haunted. Footsteps were heard at night. Things went missing. Items appeared in the house that nobody there could ever remember buying. Not long before the murders, tracks were seen in the snow outside and around the farm where somebody had been walking. The family ignored the signs that something was terribly wrong here. But in a way, wouldn't you? Because admitting to yourself that a stranger is living in your house might make it real, and that is a difficult thing to accept. Not as difficult as what happened after, though. As best as we can tell, the killer lured the family out into the barn one by one, where he beat them all to death with a mattock, a farming implement that looks a little like a tiny pickaxe. Once he killed all 6 members of the family, he stacked the bodies and then continued to live in the farmhouse for 3 more days. He ate their food, he fed their animals on the farm, and he made and stoked the fire. After that, he was gone and he would never be seen again. Over a century later, the killings are still unsolved. It really makes you wonder who might be hiding in your house tonight. But we're not done. We have one more story for you, the ultimate scary urban legend that is sadly very much true. Number 1. The organ thieves. If you've heard any scary urban legends at all, you've heard about this little doozy. It's usually a businessman in a foreign country on business, deciding to let loose after a long day by enjoying a few drinks at the local bar. There, an attractive lady catches his eye and the two strike up a conversation. She seems really into him and even buys him a few drinks, and that's when he loses all memory of what happened. Next thing you know, he's waking up in a freezing bathtub full of ice in a motel room. There's a note or a message written on the wall. If he doesn't call 911, he's going to be dead soon. Conveniently, there's a burner phone right next to the bathtub. He calls the emergency services, who take him to the nearest hospital and get him hooked up to a dialysis machine because he just had his kidneys stolen for sale on the black market. And according to a group of extremely unlucky men in India, body trafficking scams like this are very much a reality. In 2009, several men came forward to the media to claim that they had been roped into an organ trafficking scheme under the pretense of manual labor. Instead, they woke up in an isolated house with surgery being performed on them to remove their organs for resale. It was a scheme that was apparently designed to victimize the kinds of vulnerable day laborers who wouldn't have the resources to fight back. For years, it was believed that there was no true basis for the organ thieves' urban legend. But the truth is, with such long waiting lists for organ transplant, it shouldn't surprise anyone that criminal groups are willing to use less than ethical means to fill in the supply gap. Their technique for getting away with it seems to just be using the kind of victims that people don't tell stories about, rather than successful foreign businessmen bar hopping on Saturday nights. Talk about depressing. Those urban legends were scary enough, but what if one experiment pushed things way too far? Watch Russian Sleep Experiment Explained for some real creepypasta, or click on this video instead.